What we are seeing in Kashmir now is an absolutely extraordinary and unacceptable situation has become even more unacceptable after August 5th when the Article 370 was kind of, um, we can't even say abrogated because legally I believe you can't abrogate it, but let's say written down in law. It was made meaningless. Its provisions were meddled with so that it became without any power and without any ability to provide protections to the people of Jammu and Kashmir, which included Article 35A, which people have been speaking about. Um, at all levels, it's an extraordinary situation. I mean, not least of all because uh, mobile phones and internet have been down for more than 60 days. Landlines have been reintroduced in the last 10-15 days, but as you know, not many people have landlines anymore. And certainly in the countryside, in the villages of Kashmir, there are hardly any landlines. And it's not simply a matter of that people don't have access to phones, because as you know, the mobile phone and the internet is not a luxury anymore. It has become globally and even in Kashmir very much part of everyday life. So whether you are a patient with a heart condition who rushes to hospital and the junior doctor wants to uh, pull up your records or speak to a senior doctor, none of that is possible right now. If you're an older person and you need access to an ambulance or a hospital in the absence of phones, you have no access to that. If you're a chemist and you need to reorder supplies from your stockists somewhere in India without access to the internet, you can't do that. Um, and forget about the fact that if you're a trader or a shopkeeper, I'm just talking about the absolute bare essentials of survival. So that, combined with the fact that you do know that prior to August 5th, apart from the more than 500,000 soldiers who are already present in the valley, at least 130,000 more troops were moved in. So we have a situation where we have an extraordinary level of military presence. Uh, People are staying indoors. It's a form of protest. Um, so I don't think the Kashmir Valley has seen a situation like this. Uh, Definitely not in the last 70 years, since 1947, where a large population has been cut off from all forms of communication, and in protest, they refuse to participate in so-called normal activities, and that is exactly what's happening. So I think we are in a very, very grim position right now. Um, it's extraordinary that the Indian media has once again exposed itself. I'm talking about the mainstream corporate owned media, has once again exposed itself by not at all interrogating the reality that is presented to them by the state. In fact, they merely parrot what they are told. And it has been left to the international media, actually, in this case, to at least to some extent give us a more accurate description of what's going on over there. Um, and of course, there have been a few fact finding teams who have gone from India. But in Kashmir, as you know, the entire political class of whatever persuasion, whether you were what the Indian media call separatists, or whether you were people like the National Conference or the Congress or any other political party, everybody who has any kind of political affiliation is under detention. So it is, by all accounts, an extremely grim and unacceptable situation.
One question in relation to Kashmir is people say that it's welfare of for the Kashmir. For example, all the security guards are there to protect Kashmiris from terror attack. That is one argument. And the other argument, they also say the business has to develop there, jobs has to be created. This is one of the two arguments which is being fed to the public. How do you?
Well, the suggestion that the uh, you know 650,000 soldiers who are now present in the valley are there for the protection of Kashmiris. I think this is a question which is very simply answered by asking Kashmiris this question. And I think the fact that all communications with Kashmir have been remained shut for 65 days is a good indication of the fact that what is the kind of answer that the government knows will come from there if you put that question to them. So I think this is something that the Indian media tends to bring up, but I don't doubt if they themselves believe it. I don't certainly if you ask anybody in the security forces in J&K, I doubt if that's the answer you'll get, that they're there to protect Kashmiris. As to the fact that whether the removal of Article 370 or the reading down of Article 370 is there because India is now going to bring development, I think one of the good things that's happened after August 5th and the so-called abrogation of Article 370 is that so much new information is coming out, even in India. So, for example, eminent economists like Jean Drèze and Prabhat Patnaik have pointed out that on all social indicators, Jammu and Kashmir is actually better off than most in North Indian states, including, I must point out, the state of Gujarat, which is supposed to be the most developed state in India. So, social indicators in J&K are much better than social indicators in Gujarat. Secondly, just in terms of, the sort of prosperity, recently Prabhat Patnaik wrote that, in fact, the lack of poverty, the lack of extreme poverty of the kind that you find across large parts of India can actually be put at the door of Article 370. Article 370 has actually prevented the extensive growth of poverty in Kashmir in the way that we encounter it elsewhere. So I think that the problem is, however, that the kinds of questions that you put to me, that is Article 370 being removed to bring the fruits of development, I think the fact that the mainstream media is able to continuously keep stuffing this down our throats hides the fact that in the alternative media spaces, more and more very valuable material is coming out, which actually points out, for example, one of the things you hear very often is about right to information, that now Kashmir will have right to information. The fact is that some of the most important human rights reports that have been produced in Kashmir, which are extremely damning of the performance of the Indian security apparatus in Kashmir, those reports have been written up almost entirely from RTI documents. So, it's unbelievable that everybody from the foreign minister to various ministers can go around in the media and in parliament talking about how RTI will come to Kashmir. Now, when Kashmir's own version of the RTI has been used so successfully to critique the Indian state over there. So I think that once again, what is happening in Kashmir actually brings us abreast to the extreme kind of the lies that we are fed continuously, and I think that is what we have to fight against.
So, are there any protests happening? Because
No,
it looks like Indians have agreed for that happily.
I think that we are living in very strange times when, for example, demonetization, which was something that both then, 1 month after it, 6 months after it, and today, palpably was against the self-interest of most Indians, seems to have been accepted quite enthusiastically and unthinkingly by Indians. So, which is something which directly hit Indians. Now, what is responsible for this kind of blind faith, I can't tell. Maybe it's the role of the mass media, we don't know that, or the manipulation of the social media, we don't know that. But we do know that people have taken something that has hurt them very badly and made a virtue out of it and said it's good for us. So in that kind of a context, when the discussion moves to Kashmir, No matter what narrative is put before people by our mainstream media and by our government, people tend to accept it. And except for a very tiny minority, of which probably includes you and me, who have questions to ask, everybody else seemed to be just accepting it unthinkingly. And that is a real crisis.